court's view, at least some of the acts and omissions alleged by South Africa to have been committed by Israel in Gaza appear to be capable of falling within the provisions of the Convention.
Israel's commitment to international law is unwavering. Equally unwavering is our sacred commitment to continue to defend our country and defend our people. Like every country, Israel has an inherent right to defend itself. The vile attempt to deny Israel this fundamental right is blatant discrimination against the Jewish state, and it was justly rejected. The charge of genocide leveled against Israel is not only false, it's outrageous, and decent people everywhere should reject it. On the eve of the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, I again pledge as Israel's Prime Minister, never again. Israel will continue to defend itself against Hamas, a genocidal terror organization. On October 7th, Hamas perpetrated the most horrific atrocities against the Jewish people since the Holocaust, and it vows to repeat these atrocities again and again and again. Our war is against Hamas terrorists, not against Palestinian civilians. We will continue to facilitate humanitarian assistance and to do our utmost to keep civilians out of harm's way, even as Hamas uses civilians as human shields. We will continue to do what is necessary to defend our country and defend our people.
Welcome, this is Najma Minhas with GVS Dialogue. I'm joined today by Hassan Aslam Shad, a international law expert, to look at the recent ruling by the ICJ on the South Africa versus Israel on the genocide case. Hassan, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Najma.
So Hassan, walk us through what the ruling is, because initially Twitter got very excited, but actually the ICJ have not ordered an immediate ceasefire.
Right. So one of the people who was having his hopes high was me. So I was very optimistic that the ICJ would order a ceasefire. That did not happen. But on the whole, I think the case is a big victory for Palestine. And firstly, let's look at what the parties brought to the table and what they had expected to be getting at the ICJ. So Israel's best case scenario was that the court would refuse to have jurisdiction. They would dismiss the case. They would say that we agree with Israel that the ICJ does not have jurisdiction over the matter because it's not a dispute, or because of other reasons like South Africa has not been directly impacted by this alleged genocide. Therefore, we are throwing this case out. So that never happened. Similarly, South Africa had come up with a number of remedies. They had asked the court to intervene and to grant those remedies. One of them was, and that was one of the most important that they wanted to get, was a ceasefire. Now, the court did not grant the parties their maximum positions. They did not get what they had wanted to seek, as an ideal sort of a scenario. Having said that, this case has set into motion a very important development in international law today. The court has accepted at the very outset that it has jurisdiction, number one. Number two, the court has granted several provisional measures that favor Palestine, although they are not a replication of all the measures that South Africa had sought from the court. The court has, and now this is very important, the court has established that there is a plausible case of genocide. Now, at this stage, we were not expecting anything more than that, because the court is not deciding the case on merits. It's looking at, the South Africa has asked for a preliminary injunction. It's asked for emergency measures called provisional measures. So if the court has accepted jurisdiction and if it has granted those measures, then that in itself is a victory for South Africa. So the court has ruled, firstly, there is a plausible case of genocide. The court has also
did it actually use those words, a plausible case of genocide?
Well, the court has not mentioned that Israel is liable under the Genocide Convention, or that Israel has conducted XYZ acts which are genocide. The court cannot do that because that would be determined in the merits of the case. But the mere fact that the court has asked Israel to ensure that the government officials, its forces do not indulge in acts which are prohibited under Article 2 of the Genocide Convention is by default accepting that there is a plausible case of genocide against Israel. Then, moreover, the court has asked Israel to ensure that there is no incitement to genocide. genocide, and that the persons who have been inciting have been guilty or have done incitement to genocide are held responsible. And interestingly, most of the orders have been passed by a vote of 15 judges in favor against 2 opposing. Now, that's pretty significant because in a couple of matters, even the Israeli judge has sided with the majority. Now, that could be in relation to the question of jurisdiction of the ICJ, but I think that's again very significant because Israel's entire premise was that we are acting in self-defense and the court should not have jurisdiction over this matter. So these are some very important developments that have taken place today. And proceeding further, the court has also asked Israel to provide a report to the court within 30 days in which it gives evidence of compliance with the orders of the court. And it is also required to preserve evidence so that, when the case does go to the merit stage, the evidence does not get destroyed in the meantime. So all in all, this has been a very good development for the Palestinians who have been suffering for the past many, many years, and more so in the last 3 or 4 months.
The court seemed to focus very much, and they use the words catastrophic humanitarian situation. Do you think this is the reason why they brought this ruling today? It took less than 10 days, which is very fast on behalf of the ICJ.
Yeah, so I mean, what more do you want to see the Palestinians suffer for you to wake up, for your conscience to wake up? I think it was about time that the court acted. The world has been sleeping as the world has watched Israelis massacre Palestinians, women and children, deprive them of their livelihoods, force them out of their lands, terrorize them, brutalize them.
What has the court specifically asked for to address this?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
But what has the court specifically asked for to address this situation, this catastrophic humanitarian situation that they refer to in their own words?
Well, so basically the court has it's acknowledged the suffering of the Palestinians, the fact that, this is not a figment of someone's imagination that they have brought Israel to the dock at the International Court of Justice. It's been happening. They have even quoted UN officials, UN rapporteurs who have made public statements after visiting Palestine and Gaza, and they have seen the suffering with their own eyes. So the court has clearly acknowledged the suffering, and they have based their decision on the basis of the suffering and the remedies that have been sought by South Africa against Palestine, against Hamas.
They refer to this 1 month. Now, in this 1 month, is it Israel alone that has to take evidence to the court that they're doing something to alleviate this situation? Or can the South African side also take something as well to say, no, they're not doing anything?
Well, the direct obligation is on Israel. So Israel has to produce evidence, whatever it has been required by the court, it has to do within those 30 days. Once the order is published, once it's in a written form, we will know more. But the primary obligation is going to rest with Israel. It has to ensure that whatever has been ordered by the court is complied with. Now, the order that has been passed by the court is binding as a matter of law. So although Israel has historically been in defiance of international law, and once again it can be in defiance of international law, but again these things will add further pressure on Israel and its partners, because the more you violate the law, the more you're going to be facing pressure from the global south, which has been pretty actively standing up against Israeli aggression.
What does this ruling mean for countries like the United States or the European Union in terms of enabling Israel or giving them a blank check?
So this is definitely going to pile up a lot of pressure on the U.S. Already we have a few cases against President Joe Biden going on in U.S. courts. Not that they would result in any implication for the individuals accused because of diplomatic immunity and all those things. But at the end of the day, this is going to add a lot of political and diplomatic pressure on Israel and the U.S., as well as those countries that have been backing Israel, because this is a public acknowledgement. It's by the International Court of Justice, which is the world's highest court of law, which has acknowledged today for the entire world to see that Israel is indulging in genocidal acts. Now, tomorrow you could have a number of scenarios playing out in different parts of the world. I mean, every country is a party to the Genocide Convention. They are all obliged to ensure compliance with the Genocide Convention. So it's not just South Africa and Israel. All the European countries are under an obligation as well. Tomorrow, other countries may pursue the case under the Genocide Convention, and countries that are parties to the convention have the obligation to impose measures to ensure that these acts don't go unpunished. Don't be surprised if tomorrow we see arrest warrants being issued against Benjamin Netanyahu and individuals from the IDF by countries around the world, and that would, of course, add further pressure on them.
There's the aspect of the moral pressure, but is there any legal pressure that now exists on these countries enabling Israel to go ahead and do whatever it felt like?
So look, as I said, the ICJ cannot enforce its decisions. It relies on the goodwill, the good faith of countries in the world, and we all know that the international rule of law has not been implemented. It has not been enforced equally. So a lot of this depends on the good faith of the countries. Unfortunately, you can't expect much from Israel because it has been in defiance of international law. I don't expect any immediate measures from its Western allies to stand in support of the court's verdict, but this is definitely going to add pressure because the more they thrash the international rule of law, the more they show defiance, there will be more discontent within the world, and more countries are going to stand up against this, especially in the global south, against Israel and America.
There's also the pressure that on the 31st, the final ruling on the Ukraine versus Russia case is coming out. The ICJ just put out a press release to that effect today. So there will be that pressure on Western countries if they do not enforce any checks on Israel's behavior here. What will be the impact of the ruling on Ukraine versus Russia?
You're absolutely right, and there is a direct equivalence between the two cases as well, because Russia has been accused of committing crimes under the Genocide Convention, as is the case here between in the present case that has been ordered, by the ICJ today. So there is a great chance that this judgment is going to be against Russia, going by by what I've read up so far. And if the court orders any action against Russia and the Western world welcomes them, but they keep turn a blind eye towards Israel, then that will reek of their double standards, and that will show the world that they're only standing up for their own interests.
Now, in terms of the actual steps on the ground that Israel needs to show, what are these steps? For example, when the court orders that they want to see immediate and effective measures to boost humanitarian aid for Gaza, or the fact that Israeli government prescribes some of these individuals, what are the steps they want to see with regard to the humanitarian element and then to the extremist element in terms of the statements issued?
Well, in relation to the extremist statements that have been made, the court has obliged Israel today categorically that they need to ensure that there is no genocidal incitement in the future. So they have to not only ensure that there is no incitement to genocide, they also have to punish individuals who have been responsible for those statements in the past. In terms of compliance,
one of the statements they specifically mentioned, in fact, was by President Herzog, saying that the whole of the Palestinians are responsible for this. So does he need to resign?
Well, if he had any morality left in him, he wouldn't have even made those statements. But I guess morality isn't something that we should be expecting in the Israeli heads of state or government officials in today's time and age.
And what about the humanitarian element? What on-ground facilities do we need to see appearing?
Well, I mean, all of Gaza has been literally pulverized. It's been demolished. So Israel is under the obligation now to ensure that humanitarian aid reaches Gaza. The people who are dying of hunger are given access to basic food and basic stuff that has been snatched away from them. All these are things that will have to be proven. I mean, you can't, after this verdict, the global lens is going to be on Gaza now, because countries around the world, even those which have, sided with Israel so far, will be watching very closely to see if Israel is going to be complying with this. Because today, if it's it's Israel that's in the dock. Tomorrow it could be them. And how long can you flout the law? How long can you take the position that the conflict in Russia and Ukraine is a conflict that we will in respect of which we will enforce the ICJ's verdict, but we will turn a blind eye towards other conflicts? It doesn't work like that, right? So you have to prove that you're fair and you are truly going to be acting in compliance with international obligations.
Do you feel that the moral obligations and the moral implications of this decision are greater than the legal implications, or you think that the legal implications are huge in this case so far?
I think it's a combination of both moral, legal, political, diplomatic, all these things coming together. But in terms of legal obligations, I think the first sort of nail has been the first salvo has been fired today by the court by clearly stating that there is a plausible. If you read the judgment, if you look at today's order, you can easily infer that today the court has ruled that there is a plausible case for genocide. So there is a legal basis. In terms of morality, of course, we know that this entire conflict that started on the 7th of October, the Israeli attacks on Gaza, they went far beyond the mandate of whatever right they had under international law to act in self-defense. So it's both moral as well as legal, but because of the legality of today's decision, whatever moral authority that Israel was invoking has also been lost today. So now the momentum is definitely not with Israel. It's shifted the other way.
Really, a point for the population of Israel to ponder over is the 1948 Genocide Convention was created after the Holocaust. So the fact that Israel is now standing before it is ironic. Hassan,
Really,
thank you so much for giving me your time today.
It's my pleasure, Manajma. Thank you for having me.